everybody, and welcome to the Storytelling on Media with Games on Twitch. I'm joined by a fantastic cast here, and we're going to talk about all kinds of things from gaming on Twitch and storytelling and role-playing games and you name it. I'm Ross Thompson. I'm the moderator, and we're joined by Becca. You want to start?
What's up? I'm Becca Scott.
And what are you right now?
What am I doing right now? All right. So I have a channel called Good Time Society where we create board game tutorial content as well as role-playing games and a podcast and more podcasts in the future. I stream on my own channel all kinds of variety games and specifically Magic the Gathering. I'm a really big fan of Magic the Gathering Arena. I also am, I interview pro players at some Magic Pro events. So that has been a real highlight of the past couple of years for me, is getting involved in pro level Magic. And yeah, that's it.
That's awesome. Malika?
Hi, my name is Malika Eubank. I'm the CEO of HyperRPG, and I think by the time this video comes out, I will be on a crazy cross-country road trip live streaming almost every day, and the show will be called In Search of America, Travels with Hyper. We are going to be going on the ground, interviewing our nerdy friends and fam against the backdrop of COVID-19, the upcoming election, and Black Lives Matter. I'm very, very excited to take this kind of storytelling to the next level on Twitch.
Fantastic. Markeia?
Hell yeah.
Hey, I'm Markeia McCarty. I am the host, narrator, and story editor for Something Scary. You might have seen us on YouTube. You also, it's the animated horror series that we do weekly. And then along with that, I narrate more stories for the podcast. You can find that on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere. I'm also a creative producer and host with Hunters Entertainment. So we have 2 shows that we do there on our Twitch channel, Hunters Entertainment. Hunters Presents, where we have long-running campaigns or sometimes one-shots with our core cast and sometimes special guests. They have that on Tuesdays. And then on Fridays, you can join me with a behind-the-games look at just about everything you can think of. It's basically a variety show where they just let me have free reign to it. So yeah, if you want to check that out on Fridays, I do that. Along with that, I've been a player and sometimes a GM for a number of different channels. A lot of channels that all of these people here have also, I've had the pleasure of playing with them on, you know, HyperRPG, Geek and Sundry, and so on and so forth. So yeah, a hodgepodge of a lot.
That's awesome. Ash?
Yeah, hi, I'm Ash Minnick. I, like everybody here, I'm kind of a jack of all trades, as you will. I freelance as an event producer, a digital media content producer, a gamer, prop master, all game designer, all the things. My most consistent thing at present is that I produce an event called D&D in a Castle, and also Sword and Scroll, which is a new digital way to connect with DMs that we've just recently launched, which is exciting. And I, just finished, actually just got out of a 6-week bubble being a prop master on a new TBS game show, which was a little crazy. But yeah, and I'm excited to get back into just like gaming from home, not being stuck in the middle of nowhere, in a bubble. Anyway, yeah, hi.
Awesome. Eric?
Hi, my name is Eric Campbell. I am the co-founder of the Streampunks RPG group, and you can find us gaming on Monday nights typically over at Q Times on Twitch, where I run Clear Skies, our Star Trek live play RPG. On alternate Mondays, the last Monday of every month, Clear Skies becomes Blood of the Void, which is our all Klingon campaign. And that is also run on the Q Times Twitch. When I'm not doing that, I'm also running games for Sword and Scroll right now. I am happy to be one of the GMs that's working with them, which has been a lot of fun. And that's pretty much it. You know, it's when compared to like all of the waterfall of activities that everyone else is doing, I find that running 4 campaigns has actually consumed my life. So that's what I do right now.
Just 4.
Just 4.
That's fantastic. So you're all very busy, which is great. There's so much content being created and put out there and watched and consumed. So But all of that, it's interesting because we all have our homebrew games that we do, and we all used to play games at conventions back when that used to happen. But Twitch has really taken on and kind of it's on hold with storytelling. How has Twitch helped gaming and storytelling and all of this that's going on? It's just fantastic. Eric, you want to kick us off?
Oh, how has Twitch helped? I mean, my entry level into how this whole medium came to be was when I was still working over at Geek and Sundry, and Critical Role was launching. And at that time, I had become aware of a bunch of gaming channels that were starting to crop up. Like Saving Throw has been around for ages, and there's been a lot of like old school RPG channels that I think people acknowledge as being like the founders of like this sort of medium and storytelling. But it's been wild watching the progression. I was actually just having a conversation about this with our community this morning about how being able to observe and enjoy this kind of content is very akin to listening to your favorite audio novels that are just kind of rewritten once a week, and you get to enjoy like watching the performances and players. The growing expansion, like it's been remarkable watching like HyperRPG, for example, has been a lot of fun to watch because there's been so much innovation in the field of like trying new ways of delivering storytelling. You know, if you want to see some of the old school ways of doing it, Saving Throw has been a staple of like constantly putting together a bunch of cast members and getting like the old school storytelling systems branched up. Q Times is also a new young little studio that's kind of doing it as much as we can in our own little closet space. It doesn't seem to be any shortage for demand. And I would love to hear what y'all think about this, but one of the things that I've observed is that the audience for tabletop RPG content and this kind of stuff isn't anywhere, it's a fraction of the size of like the video game audience. But the loyalty and the love of that audience is immense and absolutely makes up for any shortfalls that you might see in audience numbers. 200 audience members who love a channel and the players and the stories will absolutely be a bedrock and foundation of helping these stories grow and expand throughout the channels. And that's been my experience watching that, because coming from GNS and then going independent has really painted a broad picture of like what it looks like across the spectrum. And I think that's where the root of growth happens for all of this, all of the studios and games and stuff like that that's been coming up. So, yeah.
Can I just say, I love that you referred to the old school way of doing Twitch. Like we're already at that point where it's like, you know, the old school Twitch guys.
It's kind of self-deprecating
Ash, we're
because like, I
mavericks
watch
here.
all of these other studios do all this amazing shit. I'm like, well, yeah, we don't have that kind of money, so we're just gonna do.
Hey, Eric, don't degrade your storytelling. You're an incredible storyteller.
Oh, I have no
Bells and
problem with
whistles
it.
or no.
Thank you. I have no problem driving a classic car. Thank you.
I'll jump in here about, I don't know what the question was, but I'm just going to say what I was thinking.
Go for it.
You're good. You're good.
Which is like, what has Twitch done for this world and how has it innovated? And I think that we're in such a rare and lucky position to be able to connect with people really well and feel that sort of social behavior accessible through a screen, because there's a lot of generations or people that just didn't grow up getting into this world that COVID has been especially difficult. And I know we have COVID that we'll talk about later, but but we have this ability to connect with our friends in a very digital platform. And I feel like that's just blown up even more since we've all been at home. And I feel like I personally have been able to take risks. I've been a player in so many role-playing games, and just a couple months ago was the first time I was like, you know what? I'm just going to run a campaign for people, and I don't care. This is for me. I need this. This is something I wanted to do. And I've been like, I'm not ready. I'm just going to do it and try things. And I think that it's led to this period of experimentation. And I agree that the loyalty that is different on Twitch versus gaming channels is so there. And people are just encouraging of community.
Yeah. And
well, what I would say for what Twitch has done for gaming is the normalization that has happened. And in regards to, there are so many people in corners of this world that exist in types of bubbles. And because of the people that they also interact with, they'll just get to, let's say, another ring of that bubble, but it's still a bubble upon a bubble upon a bubble, and like their world will be so small. Something that I feel that Twitch has done with gaming, and in particular with RPGs and storytelling and everything like that, it's been able to really take a back to the notion of the nerd, or the whole Dungeons and Dragons nerdery, or that gamers only look like this type of a thing. So I in particularly enjoy that literally anyone with a webcam and a little bit of technical know-how can then do a Twitch gaming channel. They can do that, and they can start spreading what gaming means for them, whether we're talking RPGs, whether we're talking them doing Phasmophobia, which I did today, and that game is nuts. Yeah, we're like doing things like that, but it's literally, they'll be able to reach out from the confines of their own home and find people that look like them and have the same interests as them, because it's something that media still falls short of when it comes to representation. And to be able to have this readily available, like you can have it at a click, to be able to see all of these people that, if you're not interested in the thing that they're interested in, then at least you can like check it out. And I find that so incredibly, like, it means a lot to me, and it's just like warming in general. But to be able to have that much access to people who look like you, people who maybe live your life or live just outside of your life, to see people outside of your bubble, if you only see a certain archetype, we'll use the term archetype, of person in your media. And I think that that's what, well, gaming in general online has done, but Twitch has been particularly successful with.
Yeah.
I want to add real quick. I think what Twitch has done to multiple industries, not just video gaming and storytelling, but also music and live events, is it's shifted from a monologue of creator to audience to a dialogue of creator to audience. And now not only has the repercussions been more accessibility, but there's a deeper kind of connection and sharing of storytelling moments, right? We can now do these things together. We tell stories together in real time with feedback, and it's been really, really incredible. But I think it's not just gaming. I want to really emphasize that Twitch is an incredible platform for many, many industries to create this kind of dialogue with fans. I'll try to make this story brief, but I was in Bangkok, Thailand a couple of years ago, and I met gamers at a traditional gaming store right off the subway. And, you know, they've watched Critical Role. They love tabletop RPGs. They love playing D&D. That's really amazing. And that's the power of Twitch and this live platform.
Yeah, I mean, well, I was just, because everyone just sort of hit on everything, but I think the summary here is that what Twitch gives to gaming and what gaming gives to Twitch, because it is sort of they do work with each other, is connection and exposure. And it's, you know, exposing people to new forms of gaming, to new forms of communicating. And also, as, you know, Markeia hit on, exposing to the fact that there are other people in the world like you that like the same sort of thing, and you know, have the same, like a lot of similarities that you don't necessarily see in the mainstream media all the time. But yeah, it's like the connection, because you are there watching people and like talking to other people who are watching the same people, and the audience is connecting to each other and building relationships with each other that you can't really do in the same way in other mediums. And I think with gaming, what makes that so easy is there's a bridge there. It's sort of like when you tune into a role-playing game show or whichever gaming show, you know the game, or you can learn the game, and then you're already connected with what's happening. Whereas in like a TV show, it's just a scripted thing that someone scripted, and you're entirely separate from it. But when you are going through the game with someone, not only are you already on the same page, you're like, oh, you know, for D&D, they're like, oh, they're playing a wizard, and I know that they have these skills and this is what they have to do, and you have that connection. But you also know that what they're about to do, they don't even know, because it is a game. And it's like, you can't script, I mean, you can, but you shouldn't, but you can't script the roll of a dice, you know, like when that happens, that's like, you are experiencing that with the player. Like you are seeing the same thing that they're seeing for the first time. And I think that's so cool. Yay, games.
That's all I, what's the next question? That's all good stuff. So everybody here plays different kinds of games, from homebrews to published games to across the board, from old school to games that are new on Kickstarter. Do you feel that games need to be officially published by a publisher designer, or do you feel that homebrew settings are still able to do well on the platform?
Do you mean like in terms of getting audience on the platform, or?
Yeah, I can grow a community and doing all of that. Does it need to be this is a game you can go buy on the shelf, or is it, hey, it's a homebrew setting we've just created?
I think, and y'all might agree with me, but like my experience has been that it's always incredibly gratifying creating your own setting, and encouraging and wonderful. And we have friends doing. Our friend Josephine McAdam just did it, and she's running her own game. And it's wonderful. I encourage it all the time. We did it at Geek and Sundry with Callisto 6, but interestingly enough, we witnessed a fascinating transition take place, because when we were running Shield of Tomorrow on Geek and Sundry, that's Star Trek. Everybody knows Star Trek, and you don't necessarily have to be into tabletop RPG to want to come check out what a Star Trek RPG looks like. In fact, we had a lot of commenters talking to us about how they knew Star Trek and they loved our story, and they don't even play. They don't even want to play tabletop RPGs. They just loved watching this. Then we transitioned over to Callisto 6, which was risky because it was an original setting on a system that no one was familiar with at the time, which was Cypher system, which is like Numenera and pretty much all the Monty Cook games that have come out. So the big concern was, are we going to see an audience drop? Because now we're moving off of a major identifiable IP onto something that's just our own. What we discovered is we did experience an audience drop, but what we also witnessed was that's where we found our core fans. So we found that the people who were just tuning in for Star Trek went to go check out other RPGs, but the people who really loved what we were doing with like creating RPG space that had, that invited more POC into it, that invited more trans stories into it, to invited all of this stuff and created this whole thing, was it really spoke to an audience that became so loyal that they have since followed us everywhere we have gone since. So it's an interesting question, because I don't think, I think it really, I think it's really defined. I think that the question is what do you define as success? Because in all honesty, if you're creating your own system and you find people that really enjoy the story that are following it, bing, you did it. Like, well done. Like, so long as you're enjoying the story that you're telling and you really believe in the world that you've created, people will find you.
I don't know why it has to be one or the other. I think there's a great sort of world for both of them to live in. There's a lot of folks out there who are just getting into DMing, for instance, who aren't comfortable building their own world. And it's a really great platform for that. I know when I learn a new system, I actually prefer to run the sort of pre-generated campaigns because I'm learning the system. And so I don't want my players to suffer from a lack of depth in their world because I don't know the game well enough. And so it's a really great starting point for new games to be like, oh, let's just try this out. This is already pre-made. We'll see how the game is. And if we like that system, then, I'm more comfortable developing a full world. And so I feel like there's space for both of it. And it's, homebrews are awesome. And I'm a big fan of changing rules for your home table because, why not? It's not like there's a person in the corner being like, actually, well, I mean, sometimes there is, but
I was going to say on Twitch,
I'm
sometimes
that
there is.
person.
yeah. I'm talking about at my house, but yeah, I think that person's usually my husband. But anyway, but yeah, like I think there's beautiful space for both things, and I love the balance of them, and the homebrew systems that become popular on Twitch that then become official is great because it's, the fans of a show can then play in that system at home and can learn more about the universe in a way that they would never do just from watching the show. And so it's
Well, I want to jump in with an alternate take on the question.
Go for it.
Only one. Sorry.
Which is, I think it's really important to work with published materials from what may seem superficial, but I want people to be able to monetize this space because
Yeah.
I think a lot about futurism. I think a lot about automation, the things Andrew Yang was talking about, and a lot of other people that I like to read. And not to make it political, but I think that us being able to monetize what we do and to value our work means that even if you do homebrew something that Eric creates, it should be published, and we should support small publishers so that we can find a way to make this, you know, a consistent future, or like something that can create value for people, that is tangible value of entertainment and good feelings, and also the creators can be able to prosper off of what they're giving. Like, I see you nodding a lot.
I actually feel the opposite.
Okay.
So as a game designer and a gamer, my number one goal is the emotional experience for yourself as a storyteller, your players at the table, and if you're live streaming this, the people who are watching. I don't need the stamp of approval of being published to feel valid in the fun that I'm having. Nobody needs to do that. And I get a lot of private DMs and even public tweets about, you know, how do you get published and all those kinds of things. I think we could take a look at traditional writing. I love to read books and I love to read fan fiction. Oh my goodness, fanfiction.net has taken too much of my life. And those stories are wonderful. And what's really cool now is we're living in an age where the line between established writer and person writing fan fiction has blurred. Some of the top fan artists are published comic book artists. Some of the top writers are published writers in RPGs and comic books and even movies. And oftentimes some of the biggest franchises, like when I was working with Power Rangers, the people writing on those franchises now started off as fans. So I just really want to emphasize, because I get a lot of DMs like, oh, are you going to publish your thing? Or like, how do I get published? And I just wouldn't worry about that at first. I think what you really got to worry about is just having fun, having a good time, and facilitating that fun for everybody around you.
Yeah, I'm Camp Ash and Malika with this, where it's just like Ash was like the, you know, both. Can we have both? Let's have both. You know, kind of a deal. Because so with creative producing with Hunters Entertainment, we deal with both licensed properties and then like original content that they have put out into the world, and you can buy, you know, Outbreak Undead, Icarus, Alice is Missing, is original stuff. And then you have Altered Carbon, which is a licensed property, and there's certain rules that you have got to follow with that. And I'm just using that as an example because I know that experience. I'm not saying that those rules are more than anything else. Protect your property type of a deal. But with that, and I'll just say it, dude, there's just still too much gatekeeping. There's still too much gatekeeping out there when it comes to publishing stuff, with people that want to be published, for people that want to put their creative stamp and element, you know, out there with everything. So no, don't wait for someone to say, yes, this is good enough to sell. People might be interested in this because it reminds you of this property. It's like, no, we don't have time for that, especially right now in 2020. No one's got time for that. No one has the emotional bandwidth to have to wait for somebody else. Somebody else is okay to be able to express themselves creatively, to be able to do that and put that out into the world for other people to also be able to respond to. I mean, some of the best worlds that I have been a part of, or that I've been able to co-create with other people, have been when we have something that, let's say, is licensed or is a published thing that we then just go off to the races with. Like, I'm right now doing a homebrew weave campaign called Custodians of the Universe. I originally did it for like a 3-parter. I kept them down to one world and like one ship and like this whole time paradox thing that I'm still proud of. Like for that campaign with Geek and Sundry, and I like took that, and now I've everybody shows up in this world now, and the one that I have, it's like I've had Daleks versus Cybermen in the loading bay of the Enterprise. for instance, and like Picard having to talk them down, and then the doctor shows up. It's like, yes, this is how it's the normalization of imagination. It's just like, let's just do that. So yeah.
Let me back up what I said a little bit, because I feel like it became a contentious thing. And what I'm trying to say is that definitely gatekeeping is a problem. People should get paid for their work. And when Markeia creates something awesome, what's beautiful is that crowdfunding and people seeing something they like and saying, you know what, I have money to throw at that and I like that. So publishing, I think the bar for what is considered like when something gets published can change. You can incorporate and say, I'm now my own publishing company, done. And I think that that's important to show that we value work, and that the fans of something can show that they value that by supporting it.
I also just want to add that I absolutely love highlighting and supporting smaller publishers. Mm-hmm. Like I love the idea of using any following that I've got to spotlight publishers that I really appreciate for the contributions that they're making to the tabletop RPG space. Like Monty Cook Games, for example, a lot of people think as is a big publisher. They're not. They're definitely a smaller publisher. Erica Chappell does a game called Flying Circus, and it's great to see somebody from the LGBTQ plus community publishing their own stuff and like creating all of this amazing stuff it's a gem of a game that doesn't get spotlight. So it's an opportunity for streamers like us to sort of point at it and be like, there are so many great games out there, and if we can help cultivate more of like the richness that's taking place, that's kind of, I mean, as everyone knows, and I'm not saying this with bitterness, just everyone knows that like the shadow of Dungeons and Dragons is large, and it casts a shadow over the great valley of tabletop RPGs. And we love D&D, but there are some great games living in that shadow that just want to be like, you know, Call of Cthulhu is great, D&D is great, Vampire the Masquerade is fantastic, but I'm like, you know, definitely check out Forbidden Lands or Numenera or any of these other games, and that would be like mid-level publishing. You know, the smaller publishers that you'll find on like Drive-Thru RPG and even off those base brands. I encourage people to explore that too. Since we're just talking about publishing real quick.
Should we just segue into publishing now? Is that our new question? Just talk about publishing.
Oh, we could. That would be just fine. But instead,
but no.
well, I mean that.
Good idea, Ash. No.
Well, it's interesting, right?
Ross, you're great.
It's all good, right? Because like even as like from the op, like we're taking our first step into doing a published RPG this year, because we're doing the whole Quest of Yore game, which is based off the Onward movie, and so we ended up
so exciting.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun, and we work with the directors and the whole team to make the game that's in the movie. So the game that Barley has and Ian, and they're all bringing it out there. So that's been a whole journey. Talking about working with a licensed property, like that's literally like hand in hand with the directors and the writers. You're creating a licensed property,
sort of.
Very much so, right? Like I can't take too much about it because the game's just not out yet. But as it does, it's going to be neat to kind of see how the director and Pat Marino and our other designers we had work with them, and how that story kind of evolved. And like as we had the game, it was funny because when I got to go see the movie, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've seen that card at the office. That's so cool. That's the thing. And that was just kind of the way that's going to go around. So when that game comes out and that whole story is played there, that's an interesting way to look at that, right? So, but there's so many ways to bring up Erica's point with the DM's Guild and, you know, RPG and everything there. There's so many stories that are out there. And every day there's something new on Kickstarter or some new crowdfunding thing that people are doing. And even without that, there's just, oh my gosh, check out a new module, which is really cool. But with that, we are kind of in the shadow of and living in a pandemic right now. COVID-19 has changed the entire industry. There's been no more conventions, no more gaming groups at shows. It's completely changed how things have worked. It's also made planning panels very hard because you guys are all very busy. So how would you say that COVID-19 has affected gaming and Twitch and what you're doing? Markeia, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. I guess the main way I'll say that it has COVID has affected gaming is like literally right now with how we are right this second, where it's I miss being able to go into like the same space as like Malika, Eric, Becca and Ash, where we would be able to literally like catch up on each other's lives and then be able to, you know, go into the game. It's like having that decompress, like where you leave your life at the threshold before you then are able to like delve into your imaginative world, like this collective imaginative reality that's within our collective imaginative reality, like that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I steadfastly believe the energy that you feel with the community, like community that's, you know, sitting outside the table, watching us, and even doing like through stream, but like also the community that could be there with you in conventions, that energy, not having that does a lot. We're trying to connect the best way that we possibly can right now. But even with this connection, we're cutting out a number of people in the community that don't have a fast enough internet connection, that maybe not, they don't even have a laptop, maybe they don't have a phone, but they were able to get to conventions because of +1s or whatever. And they're not part of the conversation anymore. And I think that that's something that COVID has robbed us of, to lose that part of the community, you know. And I for one don't know a way to get that back right now. I mean, we're what, in October now of 2020, and you know, with looking at how this might continue forward into 2021, it hurts a bit to know that that community just, you know, shouting into a void type of a deal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a double-edged sword though, isn't it? Because you've also got, and we talked about this on the panel that we did last for Comic-Con, but there's a number of people that also can't afford to go to conventions, that can't travel that far, that were able to experience panels for maybe the first time because of, you know, it all being on the internet. And so it is a loss and gain. And I mean, obviously there's nothing about it that's a perfect situation. And, you know, and we're all kind of like learning and growing and adapting. And I think the hardest part of it is the disconnect. You know, there are natural disasters that happen that affect an entire community. Not to get too much of that, I lived in New Orleans during Katrina, and that was devastating, but I was still able to hug people. And so dealing with this versus dealing with that has been such an emotional difference, because we're all going through it, but we're all going through it alone, almost.
Yeah, there's no question that there is a completely different energy with live theater as it takes place.
I'm gonna cry. Don't say live theater. Stop. That's the one thing I can't unpack.
I mean, that's essentially
live theater, live concerts.
Mm-hmm. That
live
is
events,
what it is.
yeah.
There's a different energy exchange when you are in front of people playing at a table. It just is. And a lot of the concerns, of course, going remote was that was going to cause a disconnect. I have learned that it has caused an adjustment, because there is an immediate disconnect. But what you find is you can definitely get it back. It's not the same, but you can absolutely have an engaged emotional experience with people. But Markeia is 100% right. It is 100% is completely different than actually playing in person. And like, you know, especially in our cast, we have people, we have a lot of disabilities among our cast members, and a lot of those disabilities are immunocompromised systems. And there is just no way we're playing in person for probably at least another year. So the options are, you know, pack it up and go dark, or adapt and learn how to create a new art form. I mean, we're kind of, it's that issue where like the river got dammed up, so the water's got to flow a different direction, or it just doesn't work anymore. So we're in that space where we are, you know, we're going to have to like innovate in this new field of remote streaming, which, as Ash has said, does have advantages. Like now we can guest star Mark Meer whenever the hell we want, because he's in Canada, right? So like, this is great. Before I could never get, like, it was really hard to lock down getting Taliesin to come guest star on Clear Skies, but now he can remote in, and it's not a big deal. Matt's been doing that too. We've got a bunch of friends that have been able to remote in that is very handy in that regards.
Yeah.
And Sword and Scroll is another example, like D&D in a Castle. We had to cancel it this year because of COVID, which innovated Sword and Scroll being adapted. And now these GMs that community members are used to watching on Twitch, now they get an opportunity to come play with us no matter where they are in the world. There's a dude in my gaming group who is gaming at 4 a.m. in the Netherlands because he wants to play a sci-fi game with me and in our gaming group. So we're super cognizant every time because like everyone's like super peppy and happy and his screen is completely dark because he's like it's before sunrise where he's at. So there's a pros and cons, but
Is that Martin?
Yeah, it's Martin. Pros and cons to this. We just before COVID hit, when you were saying that, Markeia, I just remember us meeting up over at Q Times and we call it the stoop kids. We call ourselves the stoop kids because after a game is over, we just stoop outside and talk for like 2 hours and hang out, and it's the greatest thing ever.
Stoop kids afraid to live a stoop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
I have so many pictures on stoops.
Yeah, we miss it terribly, and I'm looking forward to the day when we can all reunite again. But it has to get a little personal. It has affected me in such a way where I'm actually in the process of probably moving out of Los Angeles and leaving California for the next maybe year or two and committing to remote streaming just because the cost of living up here is so intense. And if I can do this remotely and I'm not seeing anybody anyway, it's like it is changing the landscape to this kind of entertainment. There's no doubt.
But that's also a kind of opportunity because you can live anywhere now. You know, before to work in the industry, you were sort of tied to a location. And now everything's remote. So I've had many friends that are like, well, I'm just going to move back home and be near my folks because I can. And it's like, it's not like I'm going out every night. So I might as well spend time with my family and work remotely. So it is, I think priorities have shifted maybe.
Yeah. I want to echo something that Eric said, which also made me sad, like Becca maybe, which is that I treat all this tabletop RPG stuff kind of like as a cousin of improv. And the two biggest tools that I use are eye contact and space work. Especially as a person where English is a second language, I rely deeply on eye contact and space work. And many of you mentioned some of the best actors I think living today are in tabletop RPG. Yeah, but they put out an incredible energy that like you feel, and it's infectious, and it grows and grows. And I think the audience feels through the camera too. And now performers have to work even harder because they don't have those cues. I'm not seeing, what people are doing with their hands and their shoulders and their body and the actual volume they're using their voice because everything's been like equalized and it's all weird. And then there's the delay and I'm not making eye contact. It's all weird. So for me, I deeply miss the, eye contact and space work. And additionally, I wonder also in our neurodivergent community how hard it must be as well when you're missing those cues, right?
Yes. As somebody with ADHD, I can speak to that. Sure. It's not easy. It's very difficult. There are so many natural distractions as is, but I personally have found it frustratingly challenging to run games via remote. It's something I've adapted to, and it doesn't seem to have affected our programming. But as a GM, for me, it is easily like jumped in the challenge rating significantly. It is a lot more difficult for me to connect and to run. And I've had games where like when it wraps, everyone's like, that was a great session. But I'm just like, no, it wasn't. I didn't feel that shit at all. Like I'm so frustrated because I was so distracted. I was not seeing my own descriptions. You know what I mean? I wasn't living with what I was trying to throw at people. And that's unique. I'm not used to that happening. And it is unique to remote streaming. And it has been something I've had to adapt to for sure.
It's the energy afterwards. Like, go ahead, Becca.
I'm sorry. I just want to interject real quick. Because my mom's a teacher in Florida, and then having to have all of these students just have to do remote learning. Well, some because Florida's open for schooling right now, but that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
That we're not going to have right now. We're gonna focus on like having to push this skill set onto people that have not had to do this previously, and it's past things like being able to read the room. It's literally, Malika and Eric, what you're saying, being able to read body language. We are only, right now, we're only seeing each other from this up, about as big of our screen is to be able to see what's going on with their eyes, with their facial expressions. And, it's a lot. It's a lot to ask of people. It's a lot to ask of yourself. And we're doing the best that we can in the circumstances that we are dealt.
It just means so much to me to hear
I
you
give
guys
a
talking about
completely
this.
different point of view.
I want to hear it. No, I desperately want to hear it.
Okay, well, two things about me that are unusual. One, I'm an eternal optimist, and I like to find, okay, this is it now, and I like it. Here's why. I am also someone that has a lot of social anxiety, even though if you were to interact with me, you may not guess that. But I really, really like the safety and comfort of my home. And it's actually, I need to give myself a pep talk to leave the house. I mean, like talking pre-COVID times. And it's very difficult. I don't think I'm the only one that deals with that because I see a lot of head nods. And that anxiety is significantly reduced when I don't need to leave my house. But maybe that's something that a lot of people lament about the direction we're headed as a society. But as you mentioned, Katrina, and I just began a book from an author I really, really respect that talks a lot about like a universal dividend or universal income kind of concepts, and has a new book about how humankind, we as a society, or like our literature and our media, has this default to assuming that people are bad and building our policies and our societies around the assumption that people are bad and will react with panic, and that there's just a thin veneer holding our society together, when actually all of the evidence and research that we have, starting from World War II, when there was the Blitz on England, and they said the morale being broken is the thing that will make us lose this war, because when people begin to get bombed, they won't know what to do. They will freak out. We'll have mass hysteria, and all of our soldiers will have to focus on quelling the masses. And that was not what happened. We all know the meme, keep calm and carry on. And in fact, that's true of not just Brits, as is assumed that they always just keep drinking their tea as their windows are shattering, but that's all of humanity. We actually have a much more ingrained capacity for caring for one another than we assume. I mean, when you look at COVID and the number of people that have volunteered and the number of people that have reached out to people that they forgot about, or delivered groceries, or all these things, yes, there's also bad things, and the desperation of not having resources has maybe caused certain crime in certain places. But if you look overall, there is more propensity towards good when priorities have changed, as you mentioned. And I think that there is a lot of positive coming out of this. And I think I'm just someone that likes to research, in addition to games and all this stuff, what futuristic ways we can look at shaping our society, and just trusting that caring for each other is important and has value. And we can even do that through a screen. I think it's really important.
Damn it, Becca, I wish I could have voted for you.
Okay, I'm running for president.
So that kind of leads for you all into the next question, which is good. And so where do you see gaming on Twitch going in the next year? Malika, you want to kick us off?
Oh, sure. I have been crossing my fingers as a fellow game developer that we're going to see a renaissance in creative media that was created safely and remotely. Video games, animation, tabletop games, films. So that's what I see overall. And I want to see more of that highlighted on Twitch, which is a platform I love.
I think we're going to be pushed far closer to Ready Player One style life way faster than we would have been before. Because there was a massive movement prior to COVID back into in-person stuff, like interactive gaming and sort of like going and experiencing something in person. And that was a big thing. And all of a sudden that's cut off. And now there's this big push for technology to catch up to where humans want to be, which is the connectivity. And so like things like VR chat and stuff like that has really exploded and grown in popularity. And, you know, with the Quest now being wireless and unfortunately owned by Facebook, You know, there's a big push towards VR and technology being another medium for social interaction. And I think there's going to be a massive technological push to make it more, and like, so you can see people and talk to people and interact with people and, you know, go places together virtually. And so I think that's going to churn much faster than it would have done without COVID.
I'll see you in the Oasis, Ash.
Yes.
I think we're going to get a lot more authentic representation moving forward, because like something that has really had us be, when we're more confined, when our world is our four walls plus what we access through a screen, I feel like that changes things. Like it has become more important with what the trends are and what people do online than it has been previously. People are assessing, being able to access each other more. And I think because of that, the younger generation has been able to have more of a forefront voice, which, like, for instance, with TikTok, for a certain campaign rally that they were able to take a stand with, for instance.
Or a certain person's daughter who maybe made some certain announcements.
I think with us being more, where it's not so much of our outsides so much as our insides now, and what we can do with computers, I feel like the authentic representation will come around, where people will be doing more research, where they want that representation behind the camera along with in front of the camera with things. It's not enough to just have a game character that is a certain skin tone and a certain hair type, or it's not enough to have one or maybe 1.5 to 2 people that diversify your majority that you have representing on your channel. It's not enough anymore, because people are spending more time than they ever have with that, because everything else has been restricted, and people want to see themselves. People want to be represented. People are tired of 2020 being the year of, oh, this was the first insert ethnicity here to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad, and it's enough, and people are tired of it. So I think there's going to be even more focus. And I think because of the protests and everything, and yes, there were catalyzing events for all of that, but there have always been catalyzing events. But for this year in particular, there have been more people that have had either drained emotional reserves this far and no further, or they have had a lot of things cut off for them. So then that battery that would go to other sources then can be like, hey, you know what? That's messed up, and I'm not going to take that anymore, and I'm going to hold people accountable for it. So I think out of this year is that is the main thrust of what we're going to get. We're going to get more authentic representation.
Hell yeah.
Not anywhere near as substantive as what Markeia just said, or as vital or as important as what Markeia just said.
Today,
Hey, I'm all for it.
No. It's funny because I was like, what would my contribution to this question be? I'm like, yeah, no, she said it, and no, she said that. Markeia's right there. Okay, so all I've got left is video game programming. Like, all I've got left is we're seeing an evolution of like the Roll20 programs. Like we're seeing this, like I mean, I can't tell you how much I wanted that when I was younger, to see like these virtual tabletops that are starting to pop up everywhere. And some of them are getting wild. What's that one, Ash? Do you remember this? It's not even been released yet, but it's on Steam right now. And it's this gorgeous, like virtual tabletop, 3-dimensional, where you get to make your own 3D miniatures and guide them through.
Are you not talking about Astral? You're talking about
not Astral, but Astral is a great example of another one that's amazing, where you can use like animated like scenery for your grid when you're putting your miniatures on it. Like there is stuff that's coming out that's mind-blowing, and is going to make games feel more cinematic in a remote streaming space, which is exciting as hell. It's actually got me going, okay, well, do I need to run D&D now? Like,
You gotta send me that link for that Steam program.
So I will say that one of the great things that's happening is, because of the restrictions placed on us through the remote streaming spaces, it is forcing innovation, because there is opportunity here now to invite the whole world to come play. Whereas before it was, as Markeia was hinting at, like it was really restricted to like who was available in your zip code. But also like who was letting somebody into the studio to come play. Now everybody can be their own streaming studio.
Yeah.
And so we are going to see a huge, I think we're going to see an increasing diversification across the board that's going to be healthy for the entire landscape, where the human experience is finally getting its story told, as opposed to like people who might, you know, be my skin color with beard on their face, which is, you know, kind of the population of the streaming space.
For sure. Yeah.
Just real quick, I think what you have to say is related to what Markeia was saying, because just like, yeah, the walls are coming down, the barriers are coming down. People are soon going to lose that excuse. That's like, because there's always this excuse with big companies that's like, well, we've tried to hire more diverse, but they're not as experienced, or they're not interested, or they're not around, or we couldn't, or whatever. And it's like, number one, it's bullshit. Number two, it's becoming more clear that it's bullshit, because the playing field is being leveled. You know, everyone's getting more exposure to like the technologies, and it is just like logging onto your computer and you're there. You don't have to be in the city, you don't have to be at the studio. And so, you know, we're getting rid of that excuse and bringing more people in, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I want to bring up two things. One, we need to socialize public Wi-Fi. This is my platform, right? This is my stump speech. Okay. But to Markeia's point earlier that people have been cut out that don't have access. Like if you live in a rural part of the country and there is no Wi-Fi, how are you supposed to do what we're doing and be able to play remotely? So we need to make sure that Wi-Fi gets everywhere. And that there's people that are creating legislation around this. And like, but I think that there shouldn't be a monopoly between AT&T and Spectrum to get our money for this very important public service. Like as much as water and electricity, we should have the public utility of internet. But
or we just all move to Norway.
Yeah, let's all move to Norway. Or we could just bring Norway to us. And the other thing that I expect in this year is, we've talked a lot about RPG games, but let's talk about tabletop and better TTS mods, right, Ross?
Totally. Agree.
Actually, I have been very impressed. So Tabletop Simulator is a Steam game, and there's also Tabletopia, which I've played less on. But there are mods
and Board Game
for
Arena and those.
There's so many. I'm TTS. I need one platform to master at a time. But I have noticed like people really are seeking out those good mods, and then companies have to step up and build a better one. And that's how I've been able to get just my tabletop game fix. and do miss, you know, the eye contact and whatnot, but
it's great to see like games like Talisman coming out on PC and stuff like that, like being able to connect us so that we can hate each other over long distance as we steal each other's crown of power is exciting, I think. And it's going to definitely help humankind.
more crowd of commands, right? Or close the door to darkness.
Adversity is the mother of invention.
Right? and these are all really good points, you know, and I'm excited for where everything is going in the future for gaming. I think a lot of competitions have happened this year that wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been put in situations. So I'm really glad that's kind of going forward. I'm glad we can do this. On our last little bit here, we're going to go around. What's a couple of things you're working on? Where can people find you? And we'll just kind of end on that. So Becca, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm Becca Scott. You can find me on all social media platform at the Becca Scott, and my company is at Good Times Society. If you could tell, I like good times. And every other Wednesday, I'm running a Call of Cthulhu game.
Oh.
Eric? Is it my turn?
Yep, sorry.
No, I don't know the order.
Oh, it's whoever? Oh, right. So hello, everybody. Yes, my name is Eric Campbell. I run Clear Skies and Blood of the Void on Monday nights on Q Times at 6:30 p.m. PST. And you can also catch us on Saturdays starting yesterday at 12 p.m. PST. Me and my friends are running Predation, which is a Monte Cook game that takes place in the Cretaceous period. So if you want to watch Gina DeVivo and Sam DeLev play dinosaurs, this is your opportunity. And we're currently developing shows over at Q Times right now. B. Dave Walters is getting ready to set up his Vampire the Masquerade one-shots. Find all the work that I'm doing over there currently right now. And I'm going to go ahead and just pass it off to you, Malika.
Thank you. That's Malika Eubank, CEO of HyperRPG. Just go to hyperrpg.com for all our links. And I just want to echo, In Search of America, Travels with Hyper, only the most violent and outrageous stories get to the top of our national and international news. If you want to see people and connect with them on the ground level, check out our show. It's going to be live starting October 9th through November 15th.
This sounds awesome.
Every day?
Oh my goodness. It looks like it. At least Monday through Friday, starting at 2 p.m., wherever our live streaming RV is.
They live streamed their wedding.
cool.
They're serious. They don't
Yeah,
mess
and my
around. They don't
honeymoon,
mess around.
and pretty much the birth of my most important child, my four-legged dog. So yes, everything is on Twitch.
Markeia?
You can find me on Twitch and Instagram at Markeia McCarty, MarkeiaMcCarty. I usually get more heated on live than I do online, but feel free to at me and stuff, and I will comment. I mean, it just happens. And if you are interested in your animated horror fix, check us out at youtube.com/snarled. That is Something Scary. It's a weekly podcast where, we take user submitted stories from all around the world. We have a multicultural focus when it comes to horror stories, including urban legends and just a little bit of everything. And of course, it's October. I don't know if you're watching this in October, but you know what? It's October all the time because time does not exist. In any case, so that, and also you can find Something Scary on wherever you find your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, whatnot. For your RPG fix, for Hunters Entertainment, I'm a creative producer and host on that. So on Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. PT, you can follow whatever campaign we are doing at the time of this recording. We're about to start a long-term campaign called Stronghold, which will be Outbreak Undead, along with a lot of audience interaction. And we're talking stuff that you can do with an app on your off time before the stream, and then you make things happen for us if possible. So I really hope that you join us for that. If you want to see me goofing off about things like behind the games with past guests have been Jason Charles Miller, Ivan Van Norman, Gabe Runs Games, and so many other people. That is Friday nights, 6 p.m. PT, and that is the most audience interaction that we're able to have with stuff. So I really hope that I see you there. And that is the Twitch channel, Hunters Entertainment.
Yay.
Awesome. Ash?
Hi, I'm Ash. Yes, you can find me on the Twitters at moonclad_Ash and on Instagram at astronaut44. As I said, I've just gotten out of a bubble, so I've been a little quiet on there recently, but now I'm back. I'm getting back into things. I'm doing a werewolf charity stream on October 18th. That is in conjunction with a stream on the 17th. They're related. Watch them both. Give to charity. And I've also got a lot of other fun stuff coming up that I can't announce today, but maybe by the time this airs, it'll be on my Twitter. So check it out.
That's great.
Oh, also dndinacastle.com, swordandscroll.com, dndinacastle.com, swordandscroll.com.
Excellent. Cool. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of the panel. And follow us and rock out. Cool. Have a good day.